So you've been murdering the cow people to hit level 25 and now you're wondering, what do I do now? Don't worry, I got you. After level 25, the game opens two directions for you: solo dungeons and group dungeons. Today, I'm going to talk about all the solo dungeons we have in the game right now, what you need to access them, and what to expect in terms of difficulty and rewards. The solo dungeons we currently have in the game, in order of the difficulty, are the barracks being the easiest, the undercourse, which I call Undervale for some reason, please XJump rename it, you gotta admit it sounds way cooler, and the desecrated altar. This one being the hardest of them and has two layers. The dungeons are set up in a way designed to teach you stuff as you progress. The barracks shows you that spells in dungeons really hurt and that bosses have mechanics you need to deal with. The undercourse, which side out here, I initially wrote down Undervale, XJump please rename it, teaches you how to deal with packs of monsters, forcing you to fight two tougher mobs at a time, and that sometimes you have to prioritize certain mobs or be aware of their spells. And lastly, the Desecrated Altar combines all of this newly found knowledge and introduces 3 mob packs, also trying to teach you that you can use line of sight to your advantage more to cancel enemies' abilities. It also introduces a lot more pain. Now, the final solo dungeon we have, Salmaster's Descent, is the second layer of Desecrated Altar, and it introduces you to a mini-boss, easier than the main boss, a 5 mob pack, and new enemies. Before we dive into each solo dungeon and show you the ways to become a master dungeoneer, there's a general stuff I want to talk about. In all the dungeons, if you die, you respawn outside the dungeon, meaning you have to use another key to get back in, and the dungeon completely resets. Ouch. The undercourse and Desecrated Altar cannot be skipped, meaning if you don't clear the whole dungeon by killing all the mobs before going to the boss, they have a little panic button that they push and call every mob from the dungeon to help them. I know, a real jackass move, but hey, the barracks boss, Sarlok the Betrayer, does not have a panic button because he's a traitor. That's what you get, you snitch bastard. So for the barracks, you can just get to the boss and kill him if you so desire. Since you cannot leave and come back to the dungeon, make sure to not be like me and stack up on food and potions before going in, otherwise you'll have to wait on sleep cooldown. I can't count how many times that happened. Once you completely finished a dungeon, meaning you killed all the mobs and the boss, a timer will appear on your screen, that being the time it took you to finish it. That goes on the leaderboard on the website, so if you are into that kind of things, keep in mind that for the run to be valid, you cannot buff yourself from another character. If you go in with buffs from the other characters, but yours, the run will not be valid. You can, however, use transmutated scrolls with abilities from other classes and apply the buffs yourself. All solo dungeon keys are soulbound, meaning you cannot trade them to other players, but the Undercourse keys and Saint Revere keys can be sold to vendors for 20k and 15k gold respectively. One last thing before we dive into the dungeons, each of them requires a key to get inside. You get the barracks key from the cow people and their pets, the wyverns, or is it the other way around? In the middle of the open world map from either Kandori's forecourt, Kandori's Castile, which I just realized it's not castle, or from Fireshear, which only has the wyverns. The key has a 5% chance to drop, but do keep in mind that sometimes the RNG is against you and sometimes it is with you. The location of this dungeon is to the north. Take the waypoint there and head north-northwest. Follow that road and at the end of it, you'll find the entrance. The Undercourse key you get from killing the boss of the barracks, Sarlok, which drops you a depleted key, which you then have to combine with the Dale gem. You get that from killing the green annoying dudes from Hillsfar Dale and has a 15% chance to drop. Once you get it, all you have to do is right click the Dale gem and click the depleted key and bada bim bada boom, you got yourself a key to the dungeon of pain and suffering. Undervale. Undercourse. God damn it. To enter this dungeon, you go back to Hellsfar's Dale and just head northwest, follow the road after the goblin camp and you will get to the entrance. Finally, upon defeating Knight Maximus, the boss of Undercourse, you get 3 keys to Saint Revere's dungeon, the Desecrated Altar. This time, all you need to enter this dungeon is to get to the entrance and use the key. You will find it right next to the church in Saint Revere and the graveyard. You only use 1 key to enter, meaning that by doing Undercourse once, you get 3 tries for Desecrated Altar dungeon. Just as I was making this video, we got the second layer of the Desecrated Altar. Salmaster's Descent. After killing Ebon Death the Corrupt Archbishop, you get Salmaster's Key, which you have to use on the stairs in the middle of the desecrated altar to go down into the next layer. The Abandoned Barracks is the first and easiest solo dungeon you get access to, and the one you need to do in order to access the other ones. The mobs we find here are Skeletal Mages, Skeletal Warriors, and the boss Sarlacc the Betrayer. Skeletal Warriors can cast Demoralizing Shout, which reduces the damage you do by 25%, Hamstring, which slows you, and Mortal Wound, which reduces the healing you receive by half. They can also buff themselves with Determination, increasing the damage they do and decreasing the damage they take. Skeletal Mages, on the other hand, cast Shadow Bolt, which increases the magic damage you take and deals a high amount of damage. And the debuff can also stack up. They can also cast Frostbolt, which will slow you. The real threat here are the Skeletal Mages, which do a lot of damage, so you want to focus them when possible and also try to evade, absorb, interrupt, or reduce the damage of the Shadow Bolts depending on what your class has access to. You can also try to use the corners of the room to lose line of sight to cancel their casts. The only rooms that will be challenging are the northeast small room, which will pull the two warriors on the right, and the room to the west, which you have to deal with a mage and a warrior twice. Just focus down on the mage first, then deal with the warrior, as the mage does a lot more damage and can increase it with each Shadow Bolt. Before going to the boss, I want to strongly recommend that in the beginning you want to full clear the dungeon and pick up items from the mobs, as you can sell them to vendors, covering your repair costs and making you some extra gold. And also check the crates and lock chest, as I have found divine orbs in them a lot of the times, and they can sell for anywhere in between 50,000 to 150,000 depending on the type of the orb and the market. With Sarlacc the Betrayer, the first boss you'll encounter in your dungeons, all you have to do is interrupt, dodge, absorb, or reduce the damage of the Greater Flame, as it's going to most probably one-shot you. You can also lose line of sight to interrupt the cast by going around one of the pillars. He always does a Greater Flame after a lesser heal, so it's quite easy to set up for it. If you are going to dodge or absorb the hit, make sure you are not in his melee range, as he does a melee hit as soon as he finishes the cast, so you're most probably either going to absorb or dodge the melee hit instead of the spell. If you have 100 points into lockpicking, you can also open the chest in his room for extra loot, something I recommend doing for all the dungeons. Looting him, you will notice he will drop a good amount of gold, anywhere in between 18,000 and 20,000, the depleted key, which you will need for your next dungeon, and other items. Kandori's Undercourse is the second solo dungeon you get access to by completing the barracks and picking up the depleted key, then combining it with the Dale Gem. Here you will get introduced to fighting 2 mobs at a time, much stronger mobs compared to the barracks, but the dungeon is shorter. You will find undead horrors, dishonored sorcerers, Kandori's centurions, and the boss, a general to the cow people, Knight Maximus. The undead horror can hit you with Hamstring, which slows you, infected wound, which reduces your attributes by 2%, and rend, which does physical damage over time. Key note here is that these abilities stack up on you depending on how many horrors are attacking you, so if you have 2 on you, you will get 2 of each of these abilities hurting you. Dishonored sorcerers are mini versions of Sarlacc the Betrayer, the boss of the barracks, so they do the same abilities. Lesser heal, which heals themselves or their allies for a small amount, and Greater Flame, which does a lot of damage. The cow people Kandori's centurions are less threatening than the undead horrors, but they can sprint at you, stunning you for 3 seconds and cast Hamstring on you. A big part of this dungeon for the ranged classes will be kiting the mobs around you. As a ranger, you sleep one target while dealing with the other. As a mage, you permanently crowd control one of the mobs using Bind Spirit on cooldown and kite around the other mob. For melee classes, you will have to face tank 2 at a time, so do get ready to heal yourself multiple times, use absorbs or damage reduction abilities. When it comes to dishonored sorcerers, they are always together with an undead horror, so you either want to nuke them as fast as possible, then dealing with the undead horror, or deal with the undead horror first while dodging, absorbing, or interrupting the fireball from the sorcerer. Then either resetting the fight with something like Vanish, or crowd controlling the sorcerer while you use health pots. It all depends on how powerful you are and if you are melee or ranged. Melee classes have abilities that allow you to face tank the mobs, so do use them and keep the interrupts you have for the Greater Flame. The same applies to the cow people Kandori's centurions. As a ranger or a mage, you can crowd control one of them while dealing with the other, and as a melee class, you will have to get in close and fight them together. Be aware that if you try to run away and kite them, they will sprint at you and stun you, so even for a ranged class, you're much better fighting them up close. They do not hurt as much as the undead horrors though. Going north, you will have to deal with another 2-pack undead horror. Just like when you started the dungeon, you can kite them down to the way you came from, then deal with the alone one left behind by his friends, therefore gaining access to the platinum strongbox, which you need lockpicking 100 to open. Same goes with the room south of the boss. You only get a rosewood chest over there, but these can still drop good items from time to time. Now for the boss, Knight Maximus, you only have to deal with 2 abilities. The sprint, just like the Centurions, he charges at you if you're in range, and the Howl of Terror, which is an AoE fear around him. The most dangerous ability here is the Howl, as he does a lot of melee damage, so if you get hit by the fear, he will get a lot of free damage on you. In general, you want to either interrupt the Howl or move away from it while getting ready to absorb, interrupt, or CC his sprint. As mage here, you burst him down, use the boon of protection which makes you immune to stuns, then bind spirit and wait for your cooldowns. Paladins and clerics both have immunes from fears you can use and just face tank him as you heal yourself. Rangers have it really hard here because you lack the damage required to manage to kill him within the utility you have. You can start by vanishing and sabotaging the boss, giving you a free kidney shot in time to deal damage, use focused evasion to not get stunned by his sprint, and either move away from the Howl or interrupt it. Remember to use the sleep arrow to wait for your cooldowns to get back, and use vanish to reset the fights in case you feel like you will die. His sprint does have a cooldown, so after 1, he generally tries to get close to you to do a Howl, but if you run away from him without slowing him down with entangling shot, he will catch up to you in sprint. One very time-consuming way of dealing with him before you get gear and increase your damage is after you sabotage him and deal damage, and with entangling shot, and run away to the start of the dungeon and get ready to evade his stun. Blindside him into kidney shot, then only do a stunning shot and another entangling shot, then run away to the end of the dungeon. You won't have time to do any more damage, but this way he doesn't get to sprint at you again, and you can repeat that a couple of times to kill him. Upon defeating the boss, you will get a good amount of gold, 30,000, a divine orb, 2 keys to the next solo dungeon, the Desecrated Altar in Saint Revere, and other items. You get a much higher chance at dropping godly items here than the barracks. Desecrated Altar introduces a more dangerous version of the Dishonored Sorcerers, the Corrupt Clerics. These can still cast lesser heal, but instead of the Greater Flame, they can cast Stormbolt, which does damage and stuns you, and Mind Blast, which does a lot of shadow damage. They can also cast Hamstring. In here, you will also find Fallen Guards. They have the same sprint ability from the Kandori Centurions, and they do a lot of physical damage. A quick tip is stocking up on food and potions, especially if you're going to go to the next dungeon, which its entrance is located inside the Desecrated Altar. The increase in difficulty here is quite big compared to the other dungeons, and you don't want to keep having to wait for sleep to recover your HP and mana, or running out of health potions that could save you. The trickiest mob in Desecrated Altar is by far the Corrupt Cleric. What you want to do is not get hit by the stun, because that almost guarantees you will get hit by Mind Blast. Keep your absorbs, interrupts, or damage reduction abilities for this, and make sure you do not get hit by the stun. This dungeon has a lot of places for you to try to lose line of sight, so if you run out of abilities to use, both Mind Blast and Stormbolt can be dealt with by running around a corner and interrupting the cast. They tend to do lesser heal into Stormbolt followed by Hamstring into Mind Blast more often than not, but I have seen them do 2 or 3 Mind Blasts one after each other, so be aware of what he is casting. Fallen Guards, on the other hand, are quite straightforward to fight. The annoying thing about them is the sprint ability not being quite consistent. It works like the sprint on Paladins. It acts in between 7 to 25 meters, so staying close to them does not trigger it, but trying to kite them does. They also try to do it after a stun to close the gap if they have it off cooldown, which seems to be around 10 seconds. The trick about them is to not let them hit you as much as you can if you are a range class. Mages can burst him down, then bind spirit him to wait for cooldowns, using the teleport to get away from the stun. Rangers will also have to do the same by using blindside and sleep arrow in between bursts. Rangers also have tactical retreat to get out of the stun and entangling shot to slow them down. The most dangerous pack in here are the undead horrors with corrupt clerics. I would recommend to deal with the undead horror while keeping the cleric under crowd control, as it seems to land better results than going the other way, as clerics are tankier than the horrors. Taking the right side, you will find 2 platinum strongboxes which require you to have 100 lockpicking. Keeping to the right track, you will find 2 rosewood crates and chests. Usually these don't give a lot, but I have gotten okay holy items and divine orbs from them before. The most complicated room will probably be the one north with 1 fallen guard and 2 skeletal mages, where I strongly recommend dealing with the mages first while keeping the guard crowd controlled, as with each shadow ball you get hit by, you get increased magic damage, so they hurt more and more as you keep getting hit. Recently, a bridge has been added right before going to the boss, so you can take that and get back to the starting zone and clear the other side. Another tricky room will be the first one to the left side of the dungeon, as you'll have to deal with a horror, a mage, and a corrupt cleric. Don't worry about the fallen guards, they do not get aggro. Here I suggest dealing with the mage first as you keep the cleric crowd controlled, as he dies very fast, then treat it just like the other horror cleric packs you've dealt with so far. Try to pull the mobs down into the hallway in case you need to use the corners of the rooms to lose line of sight. Even if the boss of this dungeon has more spells in its kit than the other bosses, you will have to deal with Frostbolt, which does moderate damage and slows you down, Divine Stormbolt, which is a stun that can't be interrupted by losing line of sight, Remove Magic, which is a debuff on you, and the big heavy hitter Shadowbolt, which deals a high amount of damage. A big way of dealing with this boss is staying a couple of steps before the corner of the hallway to the right so that you can lose line of sight interrupting the Shadowbolt even if you get slowed by Frostbolt. But do keep in mind that the stun, Stormbolt, is a global cast, meaning you can't lose line of sight to interrupt it, so you need to keep your abilities for that. His kit does not do a lot of damage outside the Shadowbolts, so as long as you don't get stunned and interrupt these, you will be fine. Killing Ebondef, you will be rewarded with over 60,000 gold, 2 Divine Orbs, a Magic Dust, and 2 or 3 godly items plus some other items. You also get the Salmaster's Key, which you need to go lower into the next dungeon. Salmaster's Descent is the first dungeon that introduces 2 bosses, one being a mini-boss, easier than the main boss of the dungeon. Here you will find lesser worms, the same ones as in the open world, Salmaster's Watchers, Undead Horrors, Fallen Guards, the mini-boss Balagos, a Great Worm, and Salmaster the Dragon Lord. We also find a room with 1 Corrupt Cleric and 4 Skeletal Mages. As I've already covered most of the enemies in the previous dungeons, I'll focus on the new ones. The Salmaster's Watchers can cast Inevitable Shard, which reduces your armor value by 10 for each stack, and Mind Blast, which reduces your attributes. The lesser worms are just like the ones in the open world. They cast Venomous Bite, which does poison damage on you, and Lesser Flame, dealing moderate fire damage. All of the other enemies behave just like in the other dungeons. The most tricky rooms here are the ones to the south. The one with 1 Corrupted Cleric and 4 Skeletal Mages require you to focus down the mages the best you can, as the debuff with every Shadow Bolt keeps stacking up, each hit dealing more and more damage. If you are a range class, you can burst down the front 2 Skeletal Mages if you wait for the Cleric to move behind them a bit. You have a window of about 1.5 seconds to kill a mage before all of them aggro. Otherwise, try to move around the bookshelves as you will break line of sight and interrupt their casts while keeping the Cleric crowd controlled if possible. The room right next to this one has 2 Undead Horrors and a Fallen Guard. There isn't much you can do here other than facing all 3 of them, as they will pull aggro. Focus the Undead Horrors first, then deal with the guard, since they are a lot less tanky than him, and if you try to kill the guard first, you will be taking a lot of damage from their debuffs, bleeds, and melee attacks. The mini-boss Balagos can be killed even if you did not clear the entire dungeon. It will not push the panic button and call for reinforcements, but Salmaster will do it, so make sure you clear the whole dungeon before fighting him. Balagos can cast Hamstring, do Bellowing Roar, and Greater Fireball Volley. Balagos is actually a lighter version of the boss of the first group dungeon you will do, lower garrison, so learning this fight means you will know what to do in there too. Unlike the fear on Knight Maximus, this time the fear is a global cast, meaning you have to interrupt it or make yourself immune to it, otherwise you will be hit by it no matter where you are. You can't lose line of sight. The same goes with the Fireball Volley. It's a global cast that does a very high amount of damage, so get ready to interrupt it, absorb it, or use any damage reduction abilities you have. Balagos does a lot of physical damage with his basic attacks too, so get ready to heal yourself a lot or slow him down and pull him down in the dungeon to kite him around. Killing him, you will get a decent amount of gold, around 60,000, a couple of scrolls and gems, and the chance at a godly item and some holy items. You also gain access to the chests behind him, which require you to have lockpicking 100. Salmaster is quite an easy boss compared to the previous ones. In his kit will find Greater Flame, a high damage dealing ability, Shadow Bolt, which works the same as the Skeleton Mage's one, increasing the magic damage you take with every stack, and an ability that pulls you in. Very important to note here is that all of these abilities can be interrupted. The thing about the pull is it's basically a crowd control ability, which does not let you do anything while being pulled, and that's his way of setting up for a greater flame. This is the same mechanic that happens with the boss of the tower, the second group dungeon you will be able to do. He also seems to time the pull with a quick shadow bolt into a greater flame. His pull is an instant ability, so you can't do anything about it. If you are a range class, however, you can sit on the side of the pits in front of him to basically nullify that. Otherwise, get ready to use damage reduction abilities, absorbs, and dispels on yourself right after a pull to mitigate the damage of the greater flame. Also, the shadow bolts only do moderate damage, but their debuff keeps on stacking up, increasing the magic damage every time, that applying to the greater flame too. So either dispel yourself from time to time or right after a pull, or keep the boss crowd control enough for the debuffs to run out. Keep in mind that each one of his abilities can be interrupted, even the greater flame, but you don't want too many shadow bolts on you either, as you will get killed by those too if you let them stack up. Killing him lends you by far the best rewards out of all the dungeons, giving you around 60,000 gold again, 10 major orbs, a guaranteed divine weapon orb, 2 magic dust, and a chance at up to 3 godly items. Alright, this is pretty much it when it comes to solo dungeons. I know I could have went into a bit more details, maybe show you full runs and discuss them, but the video is already 20 minutes as it is, and a big part of the game right now is you discovering and optimizing your runs, your gameplay. Do not be afraid to do mistakes. Right now, the keys you need to access the dungeons are fairly easy to obtain. I do stream on Twitch, so if you have any questions related to the Dreadmyst dungeons, or you just want to hang around and have a chat, maybe drop a follow so you can get a notification when I go live. I'm also trying to build a community on Discord, not only related to Dreadmyst, but really just people passionate about games. If you are into that kind of things, you will find a link in the description. Until next time, Breach out.